Hey folks, this is Matt Chat and this is my plywood canoe building adventure. It was supposed to be a cheap 2-week project, but instead it took a couple of months. I ended up building 2 canoes, built a canoe carrying dolly, a boat rack for my truck, and a hanging system for canoe storage. I made tons of mistakes and probably would have given up if it weren't for the money I had already spent. It became an amazing adventure, all for a canoe I wasn't sure I was going to use. Let's take a look at the products I got from the specialty store. These products were very difficult to find. Certainly not available locally. Ordering them would cost an arm and a leg with shipping. I found one in a neighboring town about an hour away. So that's what I went out and bought. But let's take a look at what I got here. When I came back, by the way, I decided I may as well go and finish the shopping for everything. So I went off to the dollar store after that and to a hardware store to purchase a few other items that I felt I would need. So here we are. Dollar store stuff, always worth a while. A paint tray, a roller. I was at the hardware store and I was looking at these exact replacements for the roller, and they were $5.89, $1.50 at the dollar store. So that's a perfect explanation why it's worthwhile going there. Sometimes the stuff you get isn't worth it, but in this case, definitely worth the price. Painting supplies, paintbrushes. If you go to a specialty paint store and you buy a paintbrush, it's not going to be as good as this from the dollar store, and you're going to pay $12, $13, $14 for that paintbrush. It's not going to be varnished, cheap paintbrush. Whereas here, dollar store, you get this beautiful paintbrush. I've used them a lot, and they paint very well. They clean up well, so worth the price at the dollar. Oh, excuse me, $1.50. The dollar store isn't exactly a dollar. I bought some black rubber gloves, a couple of paintbrushes, and just because I was there at the side, I bought some Armor All for my truck, which needed it. Not exactly required for the canoe, but I was there. All right, so on we go with the more interesting stuff. Oh yeah, the hardware store. I ended up buying a package of latex gloves. Working with the fiberglass resin is just absolutely deadly on your hands. You really have to protect your hands from it. Not necessarily, I don't know if it'll burn you, but it'll certainly stick to you. And you've got to use the latex gloves to make cleaning up easier and possibly protect your skin. I'm sure that they do irritate. I can see it says irritating right there on the container. Okay, so what else did I get from there? Oh yes, I got some acetone because it's recommended that when you do your first painting of the canoe, of the wood surface, you dilute the resin with some acetone, very small amount, 5%. But the acetone dilution allows the resin to soak into the wood much more, and it'll bond to that wood like nothing else. The second coat that you put on, you don't do that. You just put the resin on full strength. And here we go. Let's take a look at our resin. Here we go. This is the final product, the West End 105, the absolute ideal product for this job. Now, granted, I went perhaps overboard on this and bought the. It seems to me the most expensive system for it, but nonetheless, this is the system that's needed for it. You buy this, and then you buy a hardener separately. I guess there are kits, but this wasn't a kit. There are different types of hardeners, at least 3 different ones that I know of. There's one that dries in 10 to 15 minutes, one that dries in 10 to 20 minutes. 20 to 25 minutes, and this one here, which dries in about 30 to 40 minutes. I sort of wanted the one that was in the middle. It had a good rating for being a good time for applying, but cost-wise, I just couldn't go for it. It was comparatively $113 for the other one and $60 for this one. So perhaps the mid-range is not purchased as often, therefore it's more expensive. I couldn't tell you, that's my guess. Anyways, so this is the product. Now to mix these are a ratio of 3 to 1, and or 5 to 1, I can't quite remember. But to make sure that you get it right, you get I bought a kit, pump kit for it. It comes with 3 different pumps, or the different types of cans that you get, and you place it in, and you go 1 squirt of the big one, 1 squirt of the small one, and your mix is perfect. So you don't have to worry about anything, and you don't have to mess with the liquid in any way. You don't have to put in measuring cups or anything like that. So again, that's extra money, but worth it in this case, because I suspect I'll have some of this left over when I finish the canoe. I think I probably will have about 1/3 of it left over. We'll find out after if it's true or not, but that's what I believe. So having those pumps will mean that it'll be ready for use at any time. Then I got this. Now I hadn't planned to buy this, but what this is a thickener agent for the resin to turn it into a paste. Think of this. I could take this resin, which is a sort of a runny liquid, the consistency of maybe honey, but I could turn it into toothpaste consistency by adding enough of this thickener. Now originally I was going to put in talc, and I asked them, what about putting in talc? And they immediately veered me towards buying their product. Now here it is, 406. And when you look at the little information on the cans for the mix, it tells you very clearly that this is the ideal filler for this material. And now I was baffled by it, because I don't know if you've ever held talc baby powder in your hands, or, well, you probably have, but in a container. It's heavy. It's actually a mineral, and it's almost like stone, essentially. That's why it's so heavy. So this stuff here, well, it weighs, what is this, 5.5 ounces. There is no weight to this. It makes me feel like I'm holding fluffy paper bits in there, you know. There's nothing to this. So I was baffled as to how this could be used as a filler. It's so different than talcum powder. Now, granted, talcum powder is a suggestion I got online, that I read online, and I don't know that that's the truth. If it would work well. They also suggested flour, but I just couldn't conceive of putting flour in there. Can you just imagine? You know, anyways, it just doesn't sound right. So the final thing I got was this: a roll of 50 yards of fiberglass material. It's woven, and it's woven so it doesn't come apart at the edges, which is pretty important, I guess. Now again, I went through agony deciding what to buy. This is, you'll see how it gets used on the canoe, as I will when we start working on that. I've never done this before. But this product here is intended to reinforce the joints between the cut plywood pieces. They say 2 inches is enough, but I kept asking myself, should I get 3 inches, 4 inches? You know, what's the best deal or whatnot? This is $74. $74. So yeah, another price to add to this. It's overall very expensive. So I'm keeping track of all the prices. I've got all the receipts for everything I purchased, and I'm going to give a tally later on near the end of the video about doing this. But I have to say that overall here, my experience of spending money isn't exciting. It's a lot of money for something I thought I could build for cheap. But I'm going to go through to the end of this project because I'm quite excited about it. So right now we've got to get back to the canoe, and I got to finish up some stitching to make sure that it's properly held. Now let's go on to the canoe, and I'll show you about the stitching here. So here's an example of some exterior stitching. Just go through it, and I just tightened it up like this very roughly with the pliers. One stitch to hold the 2 pieces together right here, and then a stitch every foot on from there. Here's some detail of an exterior stitch. You can see the 2 holes, and you can see the metal going through it. You can see those lines there. I just decided to put the drill holes exactly on the lines of the 1 foot mark of the planks. It was an easy gauge to follow, and an easy way to drill holes on both planks that would make sure that it would be similarly placed, and without having to measure them, measure every one of them. And overall, there is a bit of displacement because of the curvatures of the canoe, but generally speaking, they align fairly well. Let's take a look at that inside. You can see from the inside how it's been twisted, just very straightforward. Now, after I put it together, I installed a piece of wood, a temporary piece of wood, to hold the canoe apart temporarily so I could get an idea of its shape and everything. Now that piece is cut to the width suggested by the drawings as the widest point of the canoe. So then that stick is placed in the exact center of the canoe. So it gives me what is intended to be the final shape of this canoe. And I'm very pleased with that. Just putting that one stick gives it that shape. But it does show some problems when it's stretched out like that in the stitching. In particular in the areas where I've got some connections, like right here. If you see this area, let's see if you can't take a look at the bottom, the connection, the joint area between the two bottom pieces here. Let's move in on that there. Now, if you take a look at the bottom wood, you can see it doesn't quite line up. Now, it's not stitched together. There's a fairly wide gap there because I didn't really know exactly how stitching through the wood would work. I thought it was more awkward to do, so I just didn't do any temporarily. So now I'm going to follow through on that and drill some holes near these areas and stitch it tight. Because it's sort of pulled away, there's a lot of stress on that wood. And an example of that stress, by the way, is right here. If you see this piece of wood here, the middle one, look at the angle. It's almost flat, okay? Now, if I follow that wood along here, let me zoom out a little bit. Oops, sorry, I'm the wrong way here. But you can see how it stands up. That one piece is absolutely twisted. See that? How much of a drop? And see that lower stick of wood was cut to be the widest point exactly at the top part of that middle piece. And when I only had that first piece on the canoe, on the bottom of the canoe, I tried to put that stick in and that was impossible. I could not bend the wood to that position. I just couldn't do it. Now, it naturally bends to that position when you widen up the top after it's stitched together. But it shows you the amount of pressure and stress that is in this canoe inherently because of its structure. Anyway, so I'm going to get on with some stitching now and get that process finished as best I can. So something happened yesterday. I think this is pretty standard for my my projects. Yesterday I went online and found a discussion page about this canoe project. And there's about 25 people who talk about this canoe concept, and they do say it's a very good design, beautiful plan. But they do mention it is a small canoe, and as such you can expect it to have a maximum weight in it. Now, I had worried about the maximum weight originally, but when I built it, when I put it together and assembled it like this, I looked at it and I said to myself, I can see that this can hold my weight. And that may be true. It may hold my weight. But the reality is a boat isn't meant to be sunken down into the water to the edge of its sides. It's meant to float at a certain level, and that's just wouldn't happen if I sat into it. They say that this boat is recommended for somebody with a weight about 150 pounds. I weigh 230, so I would be significantly above the weight of this canoe. So all of a sudden I'm in a quandary. I started with this project, the idea of building a canoe that would be a quick process, a one-sheet canoe, and I was quite drawn by the idea. But now I'm at a crossroads. I bought my materials, but if I use these materials on this canoe, I go in knowing that this thing is barely going to be able to work as a canoe for me, if at all. So what am I going to do? I've thought about it a fair bit, and I've had two ideas, both of them sort of similar. In the end, I could try to temporarily do a temporary job on this canoe. I could silicone the edges, leave it stitched as it is, and paint it with some plastic paint just to waterproof it quickly, and take it out to see how it works. Not do very much more work to it, just enough to stabilize it and take it out to see how it does work. Does it, hold my weight or not, and that type of thing. Once I did that, I could possibly pass it off to some young man or child, or some family who would want to get the canoe for free, something like that. The other approach is to give up on that entirely, completely, and just take the canoe and cut it apart or break it apart and start again. But to take the same plan and enlarge the plan so that it would build a larger canoe. I've looked at it briefly, and I think that that's a feasible thing to do, where I just need to come up with a formula. It's a simple number, really. You take whatever measures that you've got on your sheet of design, and you just multiply by that number, and it gives you the new size of your canoe. So I think I can create something like that, where I build a canoe that would be bigger than this, using 1.5 or 2 sheets of plywood instead of one sheet. I even come up with an idea of how to do it, and I'm sure that I already know that I could build a 15-foot canoe out of 2 sheets of plywood with the same pattern as this. And a 15-foot canoe is definitely going to be able to hold my weight. There's no question about that. But I'm entering into a 15-foot canoe. The idea of getting the 12-foot canoe was to get something that was easy to carry, that I would easily be able to handle, go here to there. But this is not what I'm getting. So I'm getting deeper into this process. And maybe I should just cut my losses, go return the materials I purchased, get a refund on that, and do it, like I said, a quick job on this canoe. Take it out for a couple of times. This is probably the only amount of times I'm going to take a canoe out, and have a quick laugh at how it works or doesn't, and stop there. But then that means I don't get a canoe done properly. I could also take this and then spend some time on it and finish it properly, but I don't want to use the materials on this canoe. I just don't. It's either use these materials on a good canoe, or I don't use them at all. That's pretty straightforward in my mind. So I'm in a quandary, and I'm not sure what to do, so I'm going to think about it, and when I resolve it, we're going to continue this project. That's going to be it for this part of my canoe building adventures. I want to thank you for joining in, and I want to remind you not to forget to subscribe to my channel, and hopefully we'll find a lot of progress in the next episode. See you soon.